Greetings, friends, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program! Okay, first, the landers. These are all just how I got the landers up in orbit. Those aren't important. So this is the lander, and I use the same lander for both the missions to Duna and to Ike. Here, I did make an adjustment before I sent the landers out. Fins, and a lot of the fins and the parachutes aren't gonna matter as much on the Ike mission, but they have to be the same weight on both sides of the ship, the same mass to keep the mass balanced. Or every time I hit the gas, the ship's gonna want to turn left or something, and I'm gonna end up smashing into the sun or something. Anyway, so like I said, always plan things backwards. So I have these heat shields down here, and a heat shield under here. And in the end, it's just going to be this pod here landing on Kerbin. So I had to have a way to have plenty of parachutes to land me on Kerbin and protect all of my science to recover. Now, the previous thing that it has to do is re-enter, or it has to take off from, let's pretend this is the Duna one, right? It has to take off from Duna. So I have these 4 very, very high efficiency engines, and I have the high efficiency space ones because I'm going to need those most for Ike. They don't work as well in the atmosphere, but Duna doesn't have a lot of atmosphere, and it doesn't have a lot of gravity either, so they will work just fine getting off the ground. And I checked, they'll work fine getting off the ground, we won't have a problem. Then when they're flying and taking off, these will decouple, and I'll just have this one big one in the middle. You see I have the fuel tanks, the asparagus staging thing again. So these tanks will drain first and then decouple. The previous thing they have to do is land on Duna, so I got landing legs out here. Landing legs, and lots of parachutes, because remember, Duna doesn't have a lot of atmosphere, so your parachutes don't do a whole lot. They have to slow you down, and I can use a little fuel if need be, but I mean, I got 12 parachutes, including these giant XL ones, so that should be enough, I'm hoping. It also has a good amount of thrusters, got some RCS, some thrusters. Those aren't really going to come into play at all until docking. You kind of need thrusters for docking. The previous thing from taking off or landing is re-entering, and they're going to re-enter engines first, and these heat shields protect these. The engines work pretty well as heat shields, actually. I guess they're designed to be really hot, probably because they're made of fire. And then I got these basic fins to help keep the back end the back, so it doesn't flip around on me. That way the engines will always be pointing towards the re-entry heat. So that's kind of the plan there. And now the Mothership. You kind of saw how it worked getting it up in space. It's just the standard, bunch of stages and lots of rockets. But I'll show you how the Mothership is designed. These are not the engines that are on the Mothership. That is not right. I saved this before I put the right engines on. There we go! So this Mothership has no science on board, because the science is all going to be done with landers, so I can return it. It's got a bunch of docking ports everywhere. A bunch of these, I only have the little docking ports unlocked, so I have a bunch of little docking ports. Never can have too many docking ports. I've learned that the hard way, and we've used them. We've used most of them, almost all of them so far, except for these ones. Huh. Oh well. Anyway, I got RCS, a lot of RCS. Again, that's used for thrusters, but in this case with the Mothership, it's not going to do a lot of thrusting. That's going to be the job of the landers. So these really serve to refill the landers, because remember, this whole thing is reusable. So I'm going to keep reusing this over and over. I probably won't use it for really big missions. I probably won't use it to get to Jewel, for example, the big gas planet, because it's got 5 moons. And I'm going to want to send a lot more landers, and it's a lot farther away. Then I got these linear RCS ports. You might have seen these little dots, and the linear RCS ports are more powerful, but they only shoot in one direction. They only shoot out. So I've kind of put them where I want them, and an important thing to do is to click center of mass, and try to get your RCS ports equidistant on either side of the center of mass. So when this isn't quite right. These engines are heavier than when I designed this. But anyway, roughly balanced symmetrically on either side of the center of mass, so your thrusters work kind of better. They don't end up twisting your ship when you want to be moving to the side, that sort of thing. And these little satellites, they have just a pressure, a barometer, a temperature gauge underneath here, some solar panels, a battery, a single communotron, and a little engine. So my hope here is I'll just put these in orbit, and if I get any contracts in the future that say return science data from the orbit of Ike, I can just have one of these little satellites send me a temperature reading or something, and I'll get that contract, and I won't have to send any more ships. So that'll be like investing in the future. Investing. I hope they have enough fuel here to put them into orbit and such. I don't know. They're pretty light. They should be okay. If not, not a huge loss. And then I stupidly left them filled with fuel and oxidizer when these little engines only use the fuel. So I filled them with a whole bunch of extra weight that they didn't need. But we have resolved that problem mostly by now. Don't need to send any people. I want to get as much fuel up there as possible. So I want to send only fuel if I can. I'm also going to need this to be able to maneuver. Need some RCS! And I can refill the RCS tanks too when I get up there, because I've been using the thrusters a lot. And we need space for oxidizer. No oxidizer. Gonna need thrusters for docking. So if I get this to that ship, I can take a bunch of oxidizer in this tank, which will inevitably be burned out, and there will be at least 2,880 extra liquid fuel to transfer to the mothership. So I'll give it more fuel and reduce its weight. So fingers crossed this works. This will probably work. This should work. So here's what I'm going to do. When I get up there, I'm going to dock in one of the docking ports, and then I'm going to decouple here, undock, and then connect this to another one of the docking ports on the opposite side of the ship to keep it symmetrical. Undock here again. So then I'll have these 2 extra tanks, some extra liquid fuel capacity, and then when these tanks get used up, I can just eject them into space and I won't need them anymore. So I'm glad. That's why you always cover your ship with docking ports. That's why, right there. Okay, that's roughly enough delta V to get into orbit. I want a lot of extra delta V though. I want extra space for a lot of extra fuel. So hopefully I can get a lot more to that ship. But I am coming up on my funds limit, so I gotta watch out for that. How am I gonna do that without going broke? That's the problem. More giant liquid boosters, anyway, is too much money. Wonder about solid boosters. If some of them help somewhat, I bet a lot of them would help a lot. That's how space travel works, right? If some rockets are good, lots of rockets must be better. Get some control surfaces here. There we go. Now let's hope this flies, because this is literally all of my money. All of it. Gonna need some solar panels, so this thing has got power. Doesn't need a lot of power, but you know, enough. Maybe some batteries. I gotta name this thing Mr. Fuel Up. Save. Okay, waiting for it. 3, 2, 1, go! It works! It flies! We are taking off! Flying higher! Into the sky! Hey, Kerbal, she does not look so happy. I wonder if it's because she knows if this launch goes wrong, there's absolutely no chance of her surviving. There's no parachutes on this thing.